Welcome to the EBPowerCon session, Sustainability, Digitalization, and Diversity for 21st Century Success with Adrian Thomas, President, Schneider Electric Canada. The future belongs to progressive organizations who embrace the evolution of industry toward sustainability, digitalization, and diversity. But what do these principles mean in a practical sense? Adrian joins EB PowerCon to help define and discuss these key principles and shed light on the opportunities they bring for electrical and energy professionals and, truth be told, every organization. Adrian Thomas is Country President Canada for Schneider Electric, and he brings over 20 years of experience in the electrical and automation industry to the role. He holds an electrical engineering degree from McMaster University and a postgraduate certificate in finance for executives from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. And joining us now at EB PowerCon is Adrian Thomas. Adrian, great to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, Anthony.
Now, Schneider Electric has embraced the principles of sustainability, digitalization, and diversity. In short, as I understand it, as we talked about it, these three tenets answer the question, where is the world going? So I want to dive into these three tenets, sort of figure out what they mean, what they encompass, and hopefully by the end of all this, they won't be seen as challenges, but as opportunities. So let's dive right into sustainability. And now I'm curious because depending on who I speak with, depending on which sector, uh, different definitions of sustainability rise to the surface. So how do you, and by you I mean you, Adrian, or you, Schneider Electric, how would you define sustainability?
Great. Thanks, Anthony. I think, for me personally, like most people, when someone says sustainability, the first image that comes through my mind is sustainability and the impact on the environment. So, trees with green leaves. But when you step back, at Schneider Electric, we take a more broad view of what is sustainability. It's built upon the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And when you think about it, sustainability is about long-term prosperity. So certainly climate is a key factor in sustainability. It's about how we use our resources. It's about also sustainability of the workforce. So with that, it's about generational sustainability. It's about equality, whether it's race or gender. Um, and it's about how do you partner with other people. So if you're going to make your business sustainable, how do you work with other stakeholders, whether it's suppliers or customers? And then lastly, we like to term ourselves as the most local of global companies. So as you're bringing these things into the market, how do you actually bring that at a local level where you have the opportunity to take action? So in broad form, Anthony, sustainability is about climate, but it's much broader about this.
So what are some of the forces at work, globally and even locally that are pushing the tenets of sustainability forward, so that they're not just a passing fancy, but something that we should take seriously because this is where the world is going.
Yeah. Well, certainly I don't think it's a passing fancy. This has been in discussion for many years, from Kyoto Protocol to the Paris Climate Accord in 2015. Now we're into 2021. So certainly one of the dominant forces is social movement. So as society, there is this belief that we need to do something about climate, and we're seeing that reflected in public policy. Just in December, the government increased the cost of carbon, and then that's going to lead into the second force, which is financials. So there is now a cost to emitting carbon, but there's also an opportunity in terms of, how can taking action on sustainability, making your operations more efficient, reducing the waste, those two things also reduce the cost of operations. So making your financial business more sustainable. So finance is definitely playing a key role here. And then the third is technology. We know there's a problem, but if we don't know how to solve that problem, we can't take action. With the developments of technology now, Anthony, there's many ways that we can now take effective action, and I hope that's going to lead us into talking about digitalization.
We'll definitely get there. We'll definitely get there. I've got that next on my list. But what I'd like to do is now looking at these principles of sustainability, and the way I see it is, you could have your head in the sand and pretend this isn't going on, but it is going on, and it's something that we should take heed of. And to your point, it also makes financial sense. So it's not just about well, only people who like green leaves on trees. This actually makes business sense from a corporate perspective as well too. Um, I seem to recall, and it might have been the International Energy Agency. I think they were the ones who mentioned that the best form of generation, electricity generation, cleanest form is the one that you don't have to generate through energy efficiencies and finding ways to save energy. Now I know Schneider Electric is big in this space. Can you point to some of the ways that building owners, operators, or the trades who service these building owners, operators can help find efficiencies that aren't necessarily nebulous, but are being employed right now?
Sure. Yeah, I think efficiency is certainly the easiest way to address this problem. And one of the things that we see is often there are efficiency programs in place, but they don't get executed for one reason or another. What we've done within Schneider is to form these local groups, local ambassadors. So I think one thing, if you're a user, that you can empower your local teams to surface ideas and take action. When we look at bringing opportunity into the people that would be watching this, whether it's designers, whether it's electricians, whether it's contractors, I think having the conversation around that and then working together. So it used to be we would expect a company to come and deliver, hey, I have this capability, do you want it? And it was this direct kind of sales. But now we're working in a much more collaborative environment. So we really have to bring together the user of the building, the contracting firm, and then some of the solution providers and the technology providers to really solve a problem in an effective way. Um, One of the things that I heard in the past on the building space is, we don't need to do things for dynamic buildings. We don't need analytics for commercial buildings because everyone comes in at 9 o'clock and everyone leaves at 5 o'clock. And so we turn the temperature up and we turn the lights on, everyone goes home, we turn everything off. Well, just think about the last year that we've been through. Do you believe that those buildings are operating that way? No, it's completely different. And buildings actually use about 12% of Canada's energy use, commercial buildings. So there's certainly opportunity. So I would really recommend people go back to that conversation, restart that conversation. And I believe there's a tremendous opportunity for retrofits. Um, just throwing away what we have and hoping that we will get to um, net carbon buildings and climate positivity by just building new. We have to do something with the existing installed base. So this opens up a lot of opportunities for retrofits, a lot of opportunity for analytics and digital services.
I'm so glad you mentioned that we need to look at our existing building stock because it's one thing to go into a green field and build something brand new with the latest technologies, the latest of everything. But what about all those other structures that are out there that haven't been built to those standards that could be better, could be more efficient and save on the bottom line? And I'm also really glad that you mentioned having those local champions. One of the things that I've learned over the years that, especially when it comes to energy efficiency initiatives, if you don't have those champions who are going to push these things forward, they often end dead in the water. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I held off a little bit, but now I want to dive into the subject of digitalization. And again, same as sustainability, I'd like to get a better understanding, a better definition of what digitalization means. Are we looking at just being able to, monitor the performance of a motor, from our homes? Are we talking about the cloud and what's in the cloud? Help me out here, Adrian.
Yeah, I would sort it into two basic groups. The first is digitizing the information that's available from the equipment from the buildings that we're already using. So your concept on motors, Are we able to bring back energy data into a system and into a place where we can use that information to give us some insights? Is the motor working properly? Is it efficient? Is it running when it shouldn't be running? Just as an example around the motor. So yeah, certainly, there's this realm of IoT and bringing data to a cloud where you can take action and do something with it. The other piece, however, on digitalization is about virtualizing what we're doing. So you hear sometimes terms in the industry of digital twin, um, BIM, so building information modeling. At Schneider, we've recently invested in a company called RIB Software, and this is what they do. They virtualize the whole process from planning a construction project to constructing that project and then the operating and maintenance. And when you can virtualize that, you have the opportunity to optimize it, to reduce costs, to manage the timing better. All the things that you can do in a virtual world, which you can't do in the physical world. So certainly IoT plays a big piece. And I think IoT plays a huge piece in terms of refreshing and making the assets we have more efficient. And certainly it'll go into the new projects. And then I believe that the virtualization in terms of leveraging these digital models so that you can put projects together, you can optimize space. That to me is another really interesting piece of digitalization.
Now, going along those lines with this influx of information, developing a building or a structure virtually and having all this data, sensors and collection points throughout a building, I can see benefits for the building owners, building managers. Do you suppose that digitalization extends to perhaps the general contractors or the trades who were involved in building that structure or perhaps maintaining that structure? Do they get some of that information, maybe to see how what they installed, how is it performing? Do you see it extending across the whole construction team?
Absolutely, and I think actually those two realms, the IoT and the virtualization, kind of merge together. So when I look at how we might be working with trades on a project, we do see some trades starting to adapt resources inside their organization that are familiar with the modeling, and we can see that those trades will be more effective and more successful in terms of being able to quote projects accurately, understand what their costs in, and be profitable, and to do things in shorter time. So when you have that ability to model or to virtualize, you actually enhance your value proposition as a contractor. The second thing I would say is that there's opportunity. We just talked about retrofit. We've been talking about sustainability. If you think about the circular economy, with those existing buildings, I think we're going to open up this opportunity for more and more retrofits. And how do you do that effectively? One of the things that we've developed at Schneider, and we've partnered with a company, is what we call EcoFit solutions. So rather than throw out everything you have, you go in and you say, okay, I can upgrade the smarts, I can make this digital, I can connect this piece of product. And the traditional way would be to tear it all out and put it all back in. Well, what we can do is we have this neat machine that can scan the room in 3D and ensure that the customized solution that we propose will fit in, will made up to what's existing there. This really reduced the risks for the contractors, knowing that it will fit when it gets to site instead of having to figure out how to mangle something together or on site do that. So that really reduced their costs, and it allows them to really participate in this retrofit market in a more effective way. And then once that digital component is there and we can connect, there is opportunity for digital service opportunity. So if you're the contractor servicing that end user, can you now leverage that to provide a service contract or a maintenance contract in a way, and not always physically, but also from getting the alert. So the moment that a breaker trips or that there's a situation, that you're alerted at the same time of the user, you can dispatch and provide better service. So I think there's a lot of ways that the contracting industry can really leverage this new technology to differentiate and to really make them more valuable to their customers.
As we move from dumb to smart via digitalization, can you speak to how far we've come and perhaps some of the things that you see on the horizon, the capabilities you see on the horizon with increased digitalization?
So where have we come? Certainly we've come a long, long way in terms of understanding in the market space of what's available. Even giving people this belief that if they don't know it's available, to believe, hey, I'm going to go look for it and see if it's available. So I think awareness of the industry has dramatically improved. Where we've still, I believe, fall short. Again, I talked a little bit about collaboration, or I touched on it, but I still think we're missing something in collaboration. So what's happened is everyone's developed some digitization within their domain. So we have these silos of digitization. We have these systems which have been developed, which are giving us great value. But what I do find sometimes during the implementation, there's no one there to catch it and plug it all together. So, there's this still, I believe, gap in terms of who owns the system of systems. So that's certainly something in the market space that needs to be addressed, and who will own that. And we're seeing different things. We're seeing some consultants taking that on, looking at how they're writing their specs. We're seeing some general contractors, but there's and some system integrators. But it's something that certainly, if you're doing a project, you have to pay attention to. These systems don't magically self-connect, and if you're not connecting them, you're not getting out of the system what was planned at design stage. So certainly that's something that I see there's a benefit. I also believe that many of the components that are in a construction project are digital, but they're not always connected. And so we have to find a way to make this next step between just getting a digital device into the building or into the process, and then how do you actually bring it back so it's worth the fact that it's digital. So this connection piece, in terms of, most things going now have this ability to be connected and to give information, but much of it is still not yet connected. So I think there's a huge opportunity there.
I like that, and I'm glad you point that out. That it's one thing to have a smart device, but if it's not connected and actually part of that broader intelligence, what value does it really bring? So I'm glad you brought that up.
When we are starting to connect all these digital pieces together, the other thing where I think there is room to improve is around cybersecurity. We see more and more events. First, everyone thinks cybersecurity in context of their email and other things, and certainly that's something that we all have to be vigilant about and be focused on. But there's also the cybersecurity of the operating technology. So as we're putting these systems into a building or into a manufacturing facility, how do you actually secure that? And that's a place where, we have joined some industry groups to make sure that we can start to deploy consistent approaches to cybersecurity into the market space. But I think that's, as we go digital, you have to bring cybersecurity along with that.
So Adrian, we've looked at sustainability. For my part, I have a better concept now of what it is that we're talking about. We've covered digitalization, where it is, perhaps where some of the gaps still are that need to be filled. And now this one really interests me, particularly because it's sort of on the surface, it looks like one of these things that aren't like the others. The subject of diversity as a very important tenet for success in the 21st century. And Schneider Electric has elevated it right there to the status or the same level as sustainability and digitalization. So it's clearly important. How would you define diversity?
Maybe I can turn this around a little bit and say, how can we achieve all this if we're not fully using all the resources at hand? So when we look at our world, it is made up of diverse sets of people, whether we're talking gender, whether we're talking race, whether we're talking sexual orientation. So how can we expect to perform our best if we're not using all the assets that we have, if we're not using all the opportunity that we have to move forward? So I would look at it from that way, that, at Schneider, we're trying to empower everyone to get the most out of our energy and resources. And the way you do that is you have to include everyone. So certainly there's this concept of diversity. And then the second piece is this concept of inclusivity. So not only having a diverse workforce, but making sure that they're accepted and they're included and that they're able to be their full self when they're at work and not just a portion of themselves. So to us, we always combine the two of diversity and inclusion together. And I think that's what has been very positive for Schneider Electric. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to really um, deliver more into the market space by having this collective diversity within our group.
It's we started with the definition of diversity, but I am pleased that you also help define what it means to be an inclusive workspace, so that it's not just having token representation in your organization, but that those people actually feel included, empowered. They're part of the team. They can contribute same as anyone else. And I mean, really, that kind of answers my next question, which is how does this elevate organizations who choose to embrace it? But rather than have me make that conclusion, maybe you can tell me just how this has worked within your organization.
I can be very specific in Canada, and I'll just give you one example. If we look at, probably people can make the correlation that if you have employees that are engaged, they're performing, they're doing best for the company. When we look at our Canadian ecosystem of Schneider employees, we actually find that our female population has a higher engagement than the average of our company. So we definitely see high engagement results. I believe as a result of the inclusive nature that we've created within Schneider Electric. I would say the other thing, Anthony, perhaps that we can get out of this conversation is visibility. Just there we talked about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and there is a notion in some of those goals that we're actually worse off than we are, and that's because we're not visible about it. So just bringing awareness and visibility then leads into this understanding that you know we can have more diverse talent in our market space. And particularly when I look at the electrical industry and in our business, which is really dominated with technology, we have a high percent of its engineers in our organization. When we look at the Canadian university, it's about 22% of Canadian university students are female. When we look at some of the programs that we have this awesome program called Go Green, where we try and get new ideas from different college students around the world. But when we look at it from a Canadian perspective, it's something around 65%, I think, is the average. So a lot of female talent applying for that. And if they're the ones bringing these innovative ideas in the marketplace, we want them to be part of our business to bring those innovation ideas to life. So we really see it in a couple, and that was just talking about gender, but I think the same can be said when we talk about race or if we talk about sexual orientation as well.
Now, I have to imagine, because this came out and does continue to come out, various industry conferences, some of my conversations with other EBPowerCon speakers, the whole issue of talent retention and attracting talent to the industry. And I would have to imagine that if you can present yourself as an organization that is open, inclusive, diverse, and you actually see these people, not just stock photos that are borrowed for a website or something, I imagine that has to, uh, you know, force people to gravitate toward you as, that's somebody I want to work for.
I believe so. And I think we have fantastic recruits. We have a program, so we also want to think about generational longevity. And I think in our industry, we have, certainly people in all age brackets and different career cycles. But how do we bridge that gap as well? So as we bring new people in, we have some programs. We have one for where we do rotation, so that we bring in the new employees and we give them opportunities in different areas of the business to ramp up their skill set. And it's an opportunity for the experienced teams to actually share their knowledge back. And I think it's win-win. I think of myself, if I can share my knowledge with somebody, it's personally rewarding. And then for the new recruit or the new employee, they get to learn and they get to learn fast. So we're seeing a lot of success with that program. And I think it comes from the value proposition we have of that, inclusive culture that we have. And then this opportunity to have knowledge transfer and intergenerational groups. So I think it all goes together.
So now, Adrian, we've kind of come full circle. We started with sustainability, digitalization, some of the opportunities and the way to understand these concepts, diversity and inclusion, how they're not just fanciful terms, but they actually deliver real value to an organization. And just kind of as we wrap things up, based on our conversation, based on your position with Schneider Electric, what excites you about the things that you're seeing now and perhaps how you see them evolving over time?
Sure. Well, Anthony, I think what excites me, if we go back to the beginning, I talked about some of the forces, and I think the first two forces are a little bit scary. So, the environmental impact and what does that mean for society, and then the second, the financial constraints being put on how we operate our businesses today. But what excites me is we have solutions. So when we talked about digitalization, there's all these ways that we can address these problems. So when you have a problem, you don't know how to solve it, it's scary. I'm excited because we have a problem, we know how to solve it, we just need to move forward and do it. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to embrace this, to focus on bringing more people into our industry that can contribute to these ideas and solutions, and embracing digital technology so that we can really move the world forward in the right direction.
Adrian, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me at EB PowerCon to have this discussion.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's been great to be here with you.